Well, hello again. This is Ray Morales with The Blind Spot, and today my guest is veteran Kerwin Davis. Kerwin, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ray. It was just a
Good.
beautiful day and the sun shining. It's good to be alive.
Yeah, that's for sure. Anytime you're green side up, brown side down is a good day, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. What branch of service were you in?
I was in the Army. I was a 63 which is power generator and wheel vehicle mechanic. But
Okay.
I,
And how long were?
uh,
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, how long were
Um,
you in?
I actually had two in. I was in for 4 years total. 1 year was guard after I got out of active duty, and I exited with the rank of sergeant. You know,
Okay.
I guess they call them
And
butt
and
sergeant
you
in
said
back in the day.
right, right. And you said you had two MOSs, right?
Yes, I was also a musician,
Oh,
saxophone.
awesome.
Yeah, we played it at the First Infantry Division band in Fort Riley, Kansas.
Right, I know where that's at.
Was my
Been there.
Yeah, that was my. It's a strange base for sure, but as long as you stay out of Junction City.
Yeah, I've been there before.
Uh,
So tell me a little bit more
yeah.
about you as a person.
Well, I am an Irish person, so I guess they call me. But that set aside, I was a heavy equipment mechanic for most of my career. Worked for dealership, drove in worldwide. I went to all these places, repaired all these big heavy cranes, and
Right.
huge man lifts. And that was my life for a long time. Um, I was born in California, but I grew up in Oklahoma. So my all my school years was for kindergarten through 12th. Uh, out in California and Arizona, winter and go to dad away because he didn't want all the political environment of the 60s affecting his kids. So that was a move that they made, which I am grateful for. Um, there was also a divorce situation, but most part, it was a humble, small town life, very Christian based. You know, Dad was a preacher for quite a while in my beginning years, and Mom was very devout in the church. You know, so I grew up. You know, when that church doors open, you go.
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah, I know that.
Beginning, yeah. So that was the beginning of my life, and then out of school, we joined the military and served my time doing that, and I really enjoyed it. Sometimes I miss it. I was talking to a gentleman that is a retired police officer in our town. He was telling me he really misses. He was a airborne, and he was in the army, but he was with the 101st or 181st. You know, the famous, you know, airborne um, regiment. I
Screaming
can't remember. I
Eagles.
think it's 101st. No, it wasn't Screaming Eagles, but
Oh,
I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was 101st Airborne Division.
okay.
Um, but saying, yeah, sometimes he misses the action. And of course, you know, he didn't have to serve. He did actually serve a little bit of support time with the one Operation Desert Storm, I believe it was.
Hmm.
But he didn't actually serve in battle, so
Right.
he's still a active duty wartime veteran, which I was not. Um, I was served in the 80s when there was no war going on during peacetime, so that's why I probably enjoyed the service the most.
Yeah, I was
Because
peacetime
I
also.
got into, uh, yeah, every time I mention that, because sometimes I don't, I find myself saying, when somebody tries to say thank you for your service, and I tell them, well, I really didn't do much, I find myself saying, well, I'm not really worthy of your thanks because I didn't have to sacrifice anything. But then they come back, you hit me with, well, you volunteered, you were ready if they needed it. And, that's debatable as to, how we feel. But I try to be humble about it.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same boat there.
Then,
Uh, I don't know how to react when they say thank you for your service.
yeah, it's a bit of a quandrum as to, like, well, I really didn't do anything. But yeah, we did volunteer.
Yeah.
We got ready in case there was, you know, during my
Yeah.
term, we did have the operation where they went to Grenada to rescue the nurses.
Right.
But
Right.
the Marines there, they had it all under control by the time we even thought about getting up. we,
Right.
were,
Yeah.
we were just getting out of bed, and they already had it. That was the closest thing we kind of action as far as that, But we were on alert for 24 hours, uh, and I was close by, but there wasn't any real expectation of danger going into it. And they told us that even though we're on alert, that there's real no expectation. I guess they figured that there was no problem with the Marines, handling it forthwith, as Ronald
Right.
Reagan would say, forthwith on
Right.
the movie show. But um,
So, after you got out of the service, what did you do?
after I got out, I stumbled around a bit like usual, as most of us do. Uh,
Hmm.
Trying to find this, try to do that, this, that, and the other. I went back to school a little bit, uh, tried to get my year of college out of the way. That was kind of my goal ahead of time, but then I saw this really nice car. It was a Dodge Charger, and it was all pumped up. So I made a mistake of cashing out the rest of my GI loan and to buy that car. I fell in love with the car instead of the education. Which, you look back, we don't, decisions in our life, but I did that, and so that meant, um, so I had some mechanical skills, and because I was always, tinkering, and I learned how to rebuild an engine when I was in high school, just from my
Hmm.
friends and their parents. And I worked with diesel, and then my MOS in the military as mechanic. Um, I decided to go to work with, or I applied and got the job with heavy equipment dealer called Machinery in Tulsa, and they were a dealership for Grove Industries, which pretty much set me up for a good. I worked with them for many years. I can't remember the exact amount, but um, I did, and I really enjoyed that job. I got a little bit of travel, We did most of the central states, from Kansas to Texas, and from New Mexico to so I got to do a little bit of that, and I got to meet a lot of great people and had a lot of fun doing it. I also was given the job of certifying for American Airlines operators on their heavy man lifts, which that gave me a little bit of power. I thought, and as we all know, everybody loves a little bit of power. But I was able to go in there, and if they were doing something wrong, I was able to take their certification away, and until they completed my training course to get recertified. So I'll make spot inspections, make sure basically everybody's staying safe, because you get up above 100 foot on your man lifts, and there'd be a lot of danger. Things can go south.
Oh yeah.
And some of them airplanes, they're 150 foot off ground. So I did that for quite a while. And then when the economy's slowing way down, they started making cutbacks and whatnot. So a company in California, and I stayed with them for about 4 years doing this, and then they went bankrupt. So I had a couple of choices at that point, either to go back to Oklahoma or just continue. I'm going to open my own business, and I opened a repair shop / gift shop / tourist trap / gas station, hamburger joint, all in one building in a little town in New Mexico called Reserve. And it was pretty fulfilling. I enjoyed it. I was the only gas station in town, which gave me a control of the market for that little area. And the next gas stations were about 100 miles away. There until the EPA said, well, we're no longer allowing above ground fuel tanks. So the EPA kind of shut me down because I had a Texaco franchise, but they wouldn't support because I didn't produce the kind of revenue that they could for the other sport. So they wouldn't help me get in-ground tanks, and I didn't have the property. I would have to buy extra property, 80 grand back in the 80s, or closer to the 90s probably, in order to put in-ground in. So I kind of closed that one out. And so I moved on to a different kind of business. I got service truck, bought my own, and I opened up my own mobile repair, and did that for several years, running my own business off and on, which I look back and, we always have bad decisions. Sometimes we have good decisions, but there was parts of that when I ran my own business that taking off your business, you don't generally taxes, you get exemptions and whatnot, and sometimes you just don't, there's not a law. It's supposedly, yeah, there is a law, but if you're not making a lot of profit, what are you going to pay on? So that kind of looking back in the future, right? So looking back, it's like, well, that wasn't a good idea to skip, a few years here and there, because I had extra going back, and so that kind of put a dent on my finances, but I survived, and like we always do. It just doesn't help my age at this time. It doesn't help my age at this time. I'm a few dollars short of my retirement, but that's okay. God's always provided for me, and even though I made mistakes, He's been there, even though. So I don't have any complaints about it, other than comments. But I was running a little short on employment possibilities because I was starting to have eye issues. So my time wise was slow. And as a mechanic, you really rely on getting everything done as fast as you can. You know, that's your moneymaker. So
Right.
when a customer comes in, you know, he wants it fixed today, not a month from now. So it was getting where my jobs were getting less and less profitable. I end up going to work for places like used car lots and such. So I was starting to get miserable. Bank account was dwindling pretty rapidly. And I was getting a lot more difficult. So I thought, well, I need to get in something where I'm not eyes like that much, you know, trying to pinpoint, you know, problems. So I had a bright idea that I would go truck driving. And I decided to do that. And when I already had my license, uh, but I needed a certification to be over the road. So I went and got that and graduated with no problem. I got that. I get my first load going cross country, and they put me on a route going to from California to New Jersey, and I hit one. Just the stress of driving that truck. Started getting as far as my eye condition goes. One morning, after facing into the sun for quite a few hours, uh, I was coming up on a tunnel, and I'm not sure if you're aware, I'm sure you are, that we have a condition called washout in our eyes. It's as if you're coming from the outside, darkened interior. It takes you a little bit for the eyes to adjust. Well,
Right.
but with the condition, it takes a lot longer and stays a lot darker. Well, that happened to me while driving the truck. I hit, and it was too dark in there. It's like somebody just turned all the lights off, and I had to shut the truck down and block it all the morning commute. Upsetting.
Oh boy.
Trying to get to work. Yeah, it a lot of people's mornings into dark day, I'm sure. Gave a lot of frustration to individuals, but you know, God had his hand on it because he'd never um, allowed me to hit a wall, another car, or I was able to stop the truck and had the flashers and everything going, so nobody, you know, ran into me. Stopped it slow enough that nobody behind me slammed into me. So, you know, it just worked out perfect. Um, Time, but they had and and so he was able to take me out, and we got the tunnel, and then of course afterwards, and it took, you know, several hours of doing the you know, what happened, but there wasn't really anything to write down on the report other than, well, everything okay now. The company and they tell me, well, or just, you know, we see now. I said, yeah. So, well, jump back in that truck and finish your job. You know, they didn't really care about my situation. You know, I don't think that's a great idea. I don't know if there's any more tunnels I'm going to hit. Obviously, it was a stressor thing that went with it, but I didn't know it at the time. So they wanted us to at least get to with that load because it was a high priority load and it was a high risk. Meaning truck driving, but had this stuff called Qualcomm now. You point your truck wherever you're at in whatever city. And if you're going 55 miles an hour, 65 miles an hour, or if you suddenly stop. Well, when I was stopping, they were yakking their heads off. Why are you stopping? Why are you stopping? They use that to figure out if you're being hijacked, or if you're being stolen, because it's a high value. It's all computer equipment. So, it was a rush job. And it's like, man, you give a guy right off the road a high priority, high value job, load like that. Man, that's kind of crazy. But, that was the cards that were being played. But I managed to get away. The driver they sent was that, hey, well, we went to Nebraska as far as just short of Omaha. And the truck broke down, so we had to dump the load there, and they had to bring in a whole nother truck. So it was right off the get go. That meant for me, or I wasn't meant for New Jersey, and God was just going to stop that one way or the other. So after that different load, we rerouted back to LA, and I had to get in the truck one more time. Well, I stayed in the truck, but had to get down off the around Monterey in order to get to. So I drove there, and I could tell at that point that stress was killing my eyes, because for the most part, I still had pretty decent vision. Tell that, like, if I walked backwards, then I had to stand a little bit longer. That was the issue. But every time I stressed, I would start getting a lot more floaters, flashers, conditions like that. It seemed like to take a little bit longer, and clarity started fading. If I had a moment of high stress, it seemed like the clarity would get even worse. And that part wasn't recovering. So I get down into LA, and we get another load back to Stockton, which is my home base, and I come out of Stockton, and they tell me, okay, you're back to your home base, so you get a doctor's permission that you can get back in the truck. You have to get your doctor's release. So I did insurance at the time, because I've been with them. That was my insurance had kicked in, so I had to figure out how to get a doctor's permission slip. They at that time would not pay for anything, so it's up to me if I wanted a job. But at that point, I was like, no, this is not for me. I was kind of actually looking to get out of that job. So, no, that's just too much for whatever's going on. So I went.
It sounds like a lot of pressure and stress.
And after I started noticing that stress was something that was hurting, I didn't want to. The last few miles, I couldn't even see the road signs, especially the bridge that says 11 foot 4 inch, or 12 foot tall, or
right.
Like that's a pretty important sign.
Yeah.
And directions, like, oh, I don't know which direction am I going. Am I on the Interstate 80, or am I on Interstate 40? That's something that's pretty important. So I went to one optometrist to see what they get a recommendation. I tried to explain. They said, well, there's really nothing I can do for you. You appear to have really good vision. I said, I don't. I tried to tell her the whole story. And they said, well, there's nothing, I'm just an optometrist. And I said, well, I really need the recommendation. And so they did write in there that I had to have a specialist look at my eye. He said, well, it sounds like this, Nap, but I'm not qualified. So, I will give you a recommendation. a vision specialist. So I thought, okay, well, at least I got a recommendation, because they won't even see you unless you got a doctor's, referral notice. So I had that,
Right.
but I didn't have no money as far as going to a specialist, no insurance. So one day I was sitting there and trying to think, how am I going to handle this in a very short period of time? I was calling every specialist I could, retinal specialist, and most of them said, well, no, I think the minimum was like $1,200 to $1,500. And I'm like, man, I just can't do that. And the company had me come in every day to fill out my logbooks to turn in, because you still have to fill your logs out, even if you're not driving. So, they got to say medical leave, and even on your holidays, you have to fill out a logbook. So I had them go in every day and do that, and they're wondering, well, got it yet? We want you back to work. And I said, no, I haven't yet. Not getting a paycheck. They're not paying you if you don't drive. They're just required to log in. So one day I was sitting there, and I had an idea to get in the phone book and just start calling organization, every kind of club. If it had the word blind or low, I was calling them. About call, I got a hold of the Lions Club, and I was trying to explain what was going on. They said, well, we can send you, and I told them about my appointment that I got with an optometrist. They said, well, we can send you to a ophthalmologist. I said, okay,
Right.
I'll take that. Now, that's just a slight cut above optometrist, So I thought, okay, I'll do that. And they started seeing things in there that they didn't like. And now, with the Blinds or the Lions Club, they normally don't go in further beyond that, because their whole move is to get people's glasses. They're not in for full diagnostics. I was sitting there and still wondering, So one day I called, I was explaining to the president of the Lions Club there, of that chapter, and he asked if he could come over and visit me at the house. I said, sure, I would love it. And brought him over, and we're sitting there, talking, discussing, and I was telling him my situation. He says, well, but I think I could convince. He said, the good thing is I'm the president, so I can make these suggestions. He said, I'm going to convince them to send you to a specialist in San Francisco. And so I was really impressed. They not only sent me, but they sent me with cash voucher to pay for transportation and meals and the whole bit. And so I went down there, and they diagnosed me with retinitis pigmentosa. I'm at today, as far as the blind journey goes.
So all this time, no one asked you if you were a veteran?
At that point, at that time, no, because they didn't really deal with veterans. However, the veteran part came in when there's nothing really I can do from this point on, the doctor in San Francisco. And so he said, you need to have different types of tests done. And he gave me a piece of paper with like 7 different tests. He said, because there's a lot of different aspects that could cause the same symptoms. He said, but I'm a professional, or I'm a specialist, and I charge a lot of money to do that. He said, I don't think you've got that kind of money. I told him, you're right, I don't. We can look at $80,000.
Oh my!
I said, great. So I come back home, and I'm him hollering around, and I'm giving the truck company diagnosis, and they said, well, until you got something, so you're, can't drive, you still have to get that. I'm still trying to figure out, okay, I've got this new diagnosis, but my vision still appears somewhat usable. Details, and then it takes longer when I walk into dark places. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
this diagnosis, but what do I do? So the year before, there in my town, in my city, they just opened a brand new veterans clinic. It wasn't a hospital, but it was a clinic, and I've never used a VA before. So somebody told me one day, I was just talking to. I said, "Hey, should you serve? Didn't you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, well, "How come you're not in the VA?" I've always viewed the VA as being, the old croonies, going to the and get drunk. That was always my view of VA, or some old timer in a hospital bed.
Right.
I never really thought the VA could be helpful to somebody that's young and still healthy. Out of choice at that time, so I thought, well, I'll go to the clinic, and I went down there, and they said, "Oh yeah, you're eligible." I told them my situation. They gave me the physical, and all that. And I thought, man, this is pretty good. I wish I'd known about the back to the hindsight stuff, stinking all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But I get them, and they do some of those tests. Not all of them are allocated in our protocol. We can do part of those tests. One of them was a optical X-ray, and it was like an orbit scan. Where they use the scan, and they scan them 360 degrees around your head. And then they did the cancer screenings. Usual stuff to find out if there's any other conditions. They didn't really do much with DNA at that time. That would come later down the road. But they gave me those, and with those, I was able to go see a eye doctor in Livermore at the Sandia Labs. Well, VA has a hospital right on the edge of the Sandia Labs in Livermore, and they work with a lot of the scientists from Sandia. So there was just happened to be at that time a group of scientists that was working with RP patients in the Sandia Labs, and the doctor was on the advisory board, giving them, the medical protocols. And so he was good friends with them, and he said, I can give you that exit you need on the truck, because this is only going to get worse. You'll never get your eye back. After he gave me that, I thought, well, that's kind of probably a good idea. The only problem now I'm looking at is getting employment somewhere else on something else. Driving a truck. So that was in my head. Back my next visit, that's about 3 months later, and he wants to know if I want to sign up for at the Livermore Lab. I didn't really labs, and of course now a few years later we have learned quite a bit about them. But they tested several different devices that they were testing at the time. One of them was an implantable eyeball. And of course, we didn't do the implants, obviously, at that point, but they introduced it to me, and they had external vision parts where they can hook it up to my brain and simulate it, which that was their opening, what they used to get the rest of their government funding for the actual Argus 2. and I just report on what I could see and what I couldn't see, and it was giving me major headaches, and I didn't like it, at that point. But another item that they tested was the lollipop, which if you're fully blind, it's a pretty good object to have because it's like a little lollipop with your tongue, and it uses little raised dots, like whatever it sees. Like say you got a plate in front, and you have steak on one side, and you have some corn on the other, and then you have mashed potatoes. It can differentiate by drawing an outline of the steak, the corn, and the potatoes, so you can kind of and outline your knife, and you just feeling around with your tongue. Problem is after you pull the lollipop out, chew the steak, and then put it back in. So that's kind of a little bit of a oxymoronic test right there, but it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It does do good if you're, it's just something that got production because usefulness was pretty limited.
Right.
They've done some work since then on different products for the blind. They started exploding all their experiments out. Once the computer came into effect, we had voiceover, all that stuff that just like how we signed up on getting this going on our laptops and phones.
Right.
When technology started exploding, then eliminated a lot of stuff that a lot of scientists were spending time and money on, which is still a good thing because, frustrated is still very beneficial. So that's kind of that in a nutshell.
So where do you see yourself going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, with the skill the BA has given me now, I've came quite a ways. I did manage to finally get on disability, which I would rather be working, but it's actually freed me up in a lot of other directions. It's kind of expanded my horizons. I do a lot of computer work, but first point is finishing my house. Well, I was single back then, and I managed to find a beautiful wife, and we got married. I did get a guide dog during the process, and the guide dog helped me get. I like to say, I don't know guide dog, but it's a nice thought to think about. And, so we're buying this place now, and my is to finish remodeling. It was the '70s home, and we're trying to get it upgraded. So I do all the work on that. I had a pulmonary a few years back, and they it left me a little bit scared of the power tools, a little bit nervous. My wife kind of started getting tired of doing my cuts for. She's not really into woodworking like I am, but so we've got the house somewhat tore up. I put new floors in, new interior siding on the walls. I put new fixtures. I've got pretty much the entire house almost ready to be. Started on the bathrooms yet. One bedroom we completely did all the new floors, even the subfloors. We did all the walls. Put in the hardwood floors instead of the carpeting. The kitchen we totally remodeled it. I ripped out all the islands, put a new island in, put new counters in, rewired all the kitchen, and I would never have been able to do any of that, with my eyesight. During this time, my eyes been steadily decreasing. When we first started, I had probably about 17% of vision left. Now I'm down to 3, and this is why I went back to the VA this last time, was to get over my fear from the embolism, to get over my fear, to get back with the power, to get this place finished with the housing market. We stand to make pretty good. So my wife is going to retire probably about another 6 or 7 years. The age up to 70, if anybody's not familiar with that. You still have your 65 option, but if you want full, you have to go to 70. So she's going to, but the main goal, I guess, per se, is to get this house done, and then to locate, another place. And I want to get my own shop. I've been floating a few ideas of starting a wood shop, making a few products like the hardwood doors. That's one of the ideals. I'm not sure if I want to stick with that, but doing some actual real wood products. You can't buy anymore. Everything's plastic or synthetic wood.
Right.
And there's real wood. So I'm thinking seriously about doing that. If that doesn't work, with the government saying maybe, no, you can't cut any trees down, well, I'll figure something else out. But the main thing is to go into retirement peacefully. Any stress, and see the grandkids, be around closer to them. So, watch them grow up a bit closer than we do now. To basically enjoy. One thing about being blind, we can't sit back and cry in our milk or complain over the cards that life dealt us. We have to do the best with what we got. Bluff our way through it or whatever happened.
Right.
But can you so you got to hold them, or I can't remember. You got to know when to hold them, know when to show them.
Know when to fold them.
But,
yeah.
There you go. So,
well,
there's not a lot of great expectations, but mainly the happiness and being able to watch the grandkids and probably soon great grandkids, although I don't want to put no hints into anybody right now. But,
so if you had to say something to the veterans that are out there listening to this, what would you tell them?
Give up. No matter where you're at, no matter who you think that is, most of the time it's always in our head. We are our worst enemies. The things we tell ourselves will destroy us a lot faster than us. So no matter what you, just take it on the chin and keep on going, because life's going to throw a whole lot of garbage your way. And don't let it. If somebody says no, then turn the page and find somebody that says yes. Excuse me. If you can't find, you say, well, that's too tough. I don't want to figure that out. Stick with it. If you don't want to learn from somebody else, just play around with it until you learn it. Don't be afraid of technology. A lot of old-timer veterans that come in, and one of the things that I saw the most when they're elected, they're standoffish. They're have a little bit of bitterness, but when they leave, they're full of confidence. They are exuberant. They're outgoing. They are ready to take on the world. Never had any kind of an inclination that maybe going to a blind center might help, do it. Don't hesitate. take advantage of it, because even if the stuff that they don't teach you, like if you can't learn it, the one thing you will come away from there with is confidence that, you know what, I can figure it out now. So just with that alone, and the idea that that you're hindered, or somebody's got to take care of you because of your loss of sight or whatever, you need to get rid of that. Because the only person that's really going to take care of you is yourself. You know what you want, and you know how to go get it. Just don't rely on others to give it to you. And I don't want to sound what's the phrase? I don't want to sound
Preachy.
forceful. There you go. Just enjoy life, enjoy it, no matter what the circumstance. It'll be great. So I guess
Well, that's great. Glad we had this opportunity to talk.
It was a real pleasure.
All right, Kurt. Yeah, I enjoyed our conversation today.
It was very.
So, Kerwin, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. We're at almost an hour.
Okay, now, I hope I didn't talk everybody's ear off.
Well,
okay.
I tell you, if my listeners really enjoyed this, they'll let you know. That's for sure, because they will put some feedback in, and I will keep in touch with you and let you know how it's going. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off, but just stay on the line for a minute while I do my sign off, and then we'll talk. Okay?
Will do.
Well, folks, this has been another episode of The Blind Spot by Ray Morales. Please join us again next week. We'll have another veteran sharing his incredible story, and it's going to be anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you find yours, you'll find us. So I look forward to you. Remember, episodes drop weekly on Wednesdays. So until next time, this is Ray Morales signing off. Well, hello again. This is Ray Morales for The Blind Spot. I'm so glad that you're here with me. And my guest today is Corinne Nero. Hi, Corinne. How are you?
Hi, Ray. I'm doing great.
Good. Can you tell my listeners who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So, as Ray mentioned, my name is Corinne Nero. I am the area sales manager for OrCam. So I cover the Midwest, about 5 states in the Midwest.
Great. What states are those?
Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and North and South Dakota.
Okay. So all you veterans out there who are looking to get in touch with Corinne about getting some OrCam advice, please give her a jingle. So, Corinne, tell me more about OrCam.
Well, Ray, OrCam is a assistive technology company that is designed for individuals with low vision, blindness, or reading difficulty. So we carry 3 devices. The main function of those devices is to read printed material. They have quite a few other capabilities, which can really be a great tool for somebody. And that because we have 3 different devices, we have tools that will really work for anybody.
Cool. Can you give us a rundown on those devices?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So our original device, which was the first to come out, it came out in about 2015. It's called the OrCam MyEye. It is a wearable unit. So you actually will clip it onto any pair of glasses. And it's about the size, it's probably smaller than my index finger. So it's a really nice and small, sleek device. You can kind of put it on or take it off as much as you need to. And it basically kind of uses your nose as a guiding line to capture images. So if there's text that you are facing, you can control the device multiple different ways. You can use vocal commands, you can use gestures by tapping the device, or hand gestures. And essentially, it's going to capture an image of what's in front of you. And if there's text there, it's going to automatically read it back to you aloud. Works really well, so you can kind of navigate the text. You could play and pause it. There's an interactive mode, which allows you to ask questions so you can hear specific content. So instead of just reading everything from top to bottom on a page, you can tell it to find something specific. So if, let's say you're reading a bill, you could say find the amount, and it's just going to read the total amount due. So it just really helps with efficiency and while you're reading. It has quite a few other capabilities in addition to reading text. I think one of the most popular is the ability for it to recognize faces. So a lot of times when you have low vision or you're blind, it's really tough to identify people by their voice. And so the OrCam allows you to actually save up to 100 faces into the unit, so that, let's say you program me into your OrCam. If I pass in front of you and that OrCam can see my face, it's going to automatically identify my name for you. So that's a really, really handy feature. It can identify products. It can identify colors, money, and something that is really, really new that most people aren't going to be aware of yet, because it's not even released to the public yet. But hopefully by the end of the month, we're going to have a feature called What's in Front of Me. I don't even have it on my device yet, but from what I've seen, and I've kind of worked with the team a bit, it's really, really amazing. So you can ask the device what's in front of you, and it is going to give you some pretty detailed information on the environment that you're looking at.
Well, that's
And so
awesome.
yeah, it's really cool. What's even neat about it, comparing it to some of the other devices, is that it allows you to ask like follow-up questions.
Oh,
So
cool.
let's say let's say you asked what's in front of me and there was a table there. You could then say what's on the table, and then it would describe the objects that are there.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's going to have some great features. Those should hopefully be out this month. So that's the MyEye. And then we have an OrCam Read, which is a handheld device. That one's used a little bit differently just because you're holding it. But the capabilities are a little bit different too. So same thing, this one has the ability to read text, but you're going to point the device at the text. You press a button and then it's going to capture the picture. So the device is about the size of like a large marker or like a highlighter. It has the same interactive mode where you can ask it specific content, like find the amount, or find chicken if you're reading a menu. And then it can also identify products by the barcode and currency.
Okay. So that's mainly for a low vision person, right?
That's a good point, Ray. It's because you're pointing it can be a little bit more challenging for somebody who's totally blind to use it. What's really, really great about OrCam is they're kind of a customer forward company. So as our team realized that this was a challenge for somebody who is totally blind, they came out with a tabletop stand for the device. And so basically it's a pretty sleek stand too. It's portable. It doesn't take up much space, but you can set it onto a table, and there are like physical legs that the stand is kind of sitting on. And so you can place that document right in between the legs of the stand, and it holds the device at a perfect distance to capture a full page of text. So it's really been an amazing solution for people that are totally blind, because now there's no more guesswork as when you're pointing the device.
Right.
So that's pretty neat.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then we just came out with the Read 3. That was about maybe a month ago, maybe a little over. And it works up the same capability as the original Read. The main difference is when you connect it to internet, it's going to use like a computer or a tablet, and it will actually magnify the content onto that device. So you can see your reading content better if you have low vision. If you can't see it, it's still going to read it aloud on the computer. It will read handwriting, and it is spot on with handwriting. So that's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I
then
can't even read some people's handwriting.
yeah, same. So the device is doing really, really well with handwriting. Could read cursive. It does not have to be that neat. It's pretty spot on, which is really cool. And then it can also summarize an article for you too, which is
Oh,
pretty neat.
that is cool.
Yeah,
So it's using AI technology then.
exactly.
So let's back up and let's find out more about you.
Okay.
Sorry, I jumped right into your profession now, but I want to know how you got to where you are. What nobody just decides one day, hey, I'm going to work with the blind. How did that come about?
Well, I was actually, when I had graduated college, I was working in a sales role. I liked it. I just wasn't very passionate about it. So I started kind of exploring some other options. And my mom actually worked for a vision department in a school. And she was encouraging me to come in and do some observations and check it out. She loved what she did. And sure enough, I did. I went and did some observations with some orientation and mobility specialists. I really, really loved it. And then ended up working in a low vision preschool class one summer just to make sure that was something I was passionate about. And I absolutely loved it. And that's kind of what got me going back to grad school. So I got a graduate degree in blind rehabilitation. And when I graduated, I actually worked for the VA system for about a decade. And so then I made my transition to OrCam about a year ago.
Right, and I think that's where we met. Was at Heinz.
Yes.
Okay, so you were working at Heinz, and then how did you get recruited for OrCam?
Well, I worked with the device quite a bit. We OrCam is one of the most commonly issued OCRs, or text to speech devices, just because of how well the product is made, the simplicity of it. It's really intuitive, and just started kind of exploring some other roles. I'm was teaching assistive technology for many years, and I have a strong passion for assistive technology, and found the opportunity with OrCam, and I've been with the company ever since.
Well, that's wonderful. So, what's next for Corinne? What do you see next? Are you going to stay with OrCam, or are you going to jump to something else when something new and better comes along?
Ray, I'm extremely happy with OrCam. It's been a great transition for me. So I am not planning on going anywhere. It's really a great role. It kind of incorporates, what I was doing at Heinz. But I just am working with different people, and my focus, instead of being on like the individuals that are using the devices, I kind of support more of the organizations that are working with the people using the devices.
Right.
So it's just been a different role, and I've been very happy with the role so far.
Well, good. Okay, let's get back to OrCam itself.
Sure.
The newest device is coming out sometime this month, you said?
So the feature on the MyEye, it's going to be on the existing device. We're actually releasing it as a software update.
Oh,
So if people have a relatively newer MyEye, they will be eligible to receive that through a software update.
okay, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to get a new OrCam; they can just or a new MyEye. They just update the one they have.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I guess there's going to be a link sent out to everybody to tell them where to get it.
So the way that the software updates will work with the OrCam devices, with the MyEye and the original Read, we've never really had all the features of the device were kind of built right into the device itself. So there was really no internet connection or functionality behind that. You can connect those devices to Wi-Fi. When you do that, it was strictly just for a software update. So that's kind of how the devices will get it. You just connect it to Wi-Fi. This feature does require internet use, and that's the only feature on the MyEye that needs internet to function.
Okay.
All of the other features will still work the same, but if that individual who has a MyEye connects it to their Wi-Fi network, that software update should download automatically.
Awesome. Okay. And somebody was telling me that the My Eye, since it does speak out loud, there's a way that you can hook it to your Bluetooth. Is that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. All of our devices are Bluetooth compatible, so you can connect them that way. If you're out in public and you're reading something, you don't have to announce to everybody around you what you're reading.
Right.
They both have built-in speakers, or all three of them, should I say, have built-in speakers. So you don't need headphones with it, but it does work with Bluetooth headphones. Both of our Read devices also have a wired jack option if you wanted to use wired headphones too.
Okay. Well, that would seem a little bulky, I think, having a wire hanging off your head.
Yeah, it could be. It's it's preference.
Yeah.
You have both options.
Some people like the wired headphones. I particularly don't.
Okay.
But also, someone was asking me, can it tell the difference between a can of pork and beans and a can of corn, say,
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the great features about our devices is they're so comprehensive. So again, these are those added features. It's not just for reading. You can, when you're working with products and you're trying to identify products, there's several different ways that you could do that on our devices. But they will be able to, if the device can see the barcode, it will announce the product name automatically. So you would hear the difference between beans or corn that way. If you have trouble finding the barcode, you can take a picture of the front of the package. As long as it's printed on the package, it's going to read it that way as well.
Okay.
And the cool thing about the MyEye is, let's say you shop at a store that has its own brand and the barcode is not saved into the device, you can actually program your own recordings. So if it was a can of corn and you buy that brand frequently, you could then make your own recording. And the next time you purchase that same product, it's going to announce your recording.
Oh, okay. Well, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it a lot easier, whether you're just completely blind or if you're very severely low vision.
Exactly.
Because, like I said, someone who was asking or telling me that they do use their MyEye for that because they can't distinguish between cans. Every can feels the same to them, and they can't read the labels anymore. So yeah, it's a good thing for them.
Yes.
So what else have you got? Tell me.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, it can do money. And the nice part about the MyEye is all of these features are kind of built in and they're automatic. So when we're talking about like a learning curve as somebody's learning to use the device, they're really, really intuitive. So let's say you had some bills that you couldn't identify. If you kind of hold up the bill in front of your nose, that camera should be able to see it. Without touching it, without doing anything, it's going to automatically announce the denomination. Works the same way with those barcodes. That way, when somebody can't see the barcode, you can kind of slowly rotate the package in front of your face, like you're looking at it. And once that camera sees the barcode, it's going to automatically pick it up. So again, you don't necessarily need to do anything or even need to visually find it because that feature is automatic. You just kind of rotate it. So it's really pretty intuitive and easy to learn, easy to use, which is great.
Well, that's great. I know that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really something that you can use because all of our devices are really extremely portable. They can all fit in the palm of your hand, in your pocket. So you can really use them. It doesn't have to be, a sheet of paper in front of you or a book. You can use it out in the community. One of my experiences previously, I was teaching orientation and mobility, and I was out on a shopping lesson. The individual I was working with wanted to be able to find the men's department and be able to buy a pair of jeans independently. and he was using the Orcam, and he was able to read the overhead aisle signs in the store to be able to find the men's department. And then he was able to find the sizes and the prices, just, being able to take a picture with the device. So it's not something that you need to necessarily use at home. You have all those added benefits, but because of the portability, you could really take it with you anywhere you go. Those reading functions, as I mentioned, don't require internet. So right out of the box, it's going to work, and it's going to work really well.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I do have an Orcam MyEye, and
Oh, great.
I shameless to say I do not use it as much as I should, because I do have a lot of vision, but not total vision. Anyhow, it isn't benefiting me right now, where I need to use it all the time.
Okay.
But when I'm trying to read something in really fine print, it really helps a lot. So I have magnifiers and stuff like that, but they're a little more um, complicated to use, I would say.
Okay.
And the MyEye, you just look and it's there. It reads it to you.
Exactly.
I really enjoy it a lot. So if you have anything you want to say to the people out there who don't have one, what would you say to them?
As we've kind of mentioned, we have so many different options right now. With our newer device too, it's got that added benefit of magnification, which we really never had before. So for people that are kind of on that border on whether or not they need a device that has text to speech, the Orcam Read 3 is a great solution because it's got all of those features that an electronic magnifier would have. So you can magnify something, you can change the colors of the document or whatever you're reading. And then it does give you the ability to save too. So we really have a solution for just about everybody, depending on your vision, depending on what you want to do. And all of the devices can really be used in multiple different ways. Like I mentioned with the hand gestures, you've got vocal commands. We now have a stand that any of the devices can fit in. So if you do have trouble pointing it accurately, the stand is a great solution. So we work with a lot of different VAs throughout the US. So most VAs are pretty familiar with our products too. And one of the greatest things about Orcam is the support. When you get a device and you're learning to use a device, especially when you go through blind rehab training, you might be getting more than one thing. And so it's a lot of, it takes a lot of practice and getting used to. And Orcam has reps all over the United States. So we work with distributors, we work with VAs directly. So every situation is a little bit different, but Orcam is always there to provide some additional support. So if you feel like you've got questions or you're not sure how to use some of the features, we can really work with the individual to make sure that it's meeting their needs and they feel comfortable with it.
Good. That's I love the fact that you guys do that. And it is true. You get so many new devices from the VA, especially when you're new to blind rehab. You're just overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Each one is very beneficial to you, but you find your favorite and you use it all the time. And it seems like after about 6 or 7 months, you forget everything you learned about the other devices.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just, like I said, it's overwhelming.
Yeah. A lot of times people, there's not just one tool for everybody. There's going to be multiple things that people are going to need. But what is great about Orcam is because it's so comprehensive, you don't need a device just to identify products. You don't need a device just for money. This is now kind of encompassing everything, which is really great.
Right. Now, I know that I did get a money identifier. I got a magnifier. I got all handheld magnifiers.
Okay.
The tabletop magnifiers, all different kinds. And it seems like Orcam's really trying to limit the number of devices that you need, and just make it so much simpler. Is that true?
Exactly. So it's really, they're really trying to be like an all-in-one solution. And that way, because the more devices you get, chances are there's one that you're gonna, put in a drawer and not use so much, just as you were kind of mentioning.
Right.
You get a lot of equipment where, this is really, a lot of things built into one device, which is great.
Well, that's cool.
Mhm.
Well, I guess it has been a pleasure talking to you today, and I hope that the people out there really enjoy this episode. Um, can you tell me anything else maybe we didn't cover that you'd like to get out there?
We covered most of it. I would just, we'll be in touch with most of the VAs and everything regarding the new features that's going to be released. But definitely, if you have an OrCam, connect your device to Wi-Fi, plug it in, leave it on, and hopefully that update will be coming soon. And we will definitely be able to provide, whether it's veterans or the VA, with some resources and ways that they can use that new added feature, which should be great.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you again, Corinne, for coming on and talking to my audience. And I hope you have a fantastic day, and congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ray. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, if you can just stay on the line, I'm going to end the interview here, and I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping.
Okay.
So thank you again for coming on, and just hang in there, and I'll be back to you in a minute.
Okay, great.
All right, guys. Well, that's another episode of The Blind Spot by Ray Morales, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Corinne Nero, she is fantastic. She's a beautiful person, inside and out, and I just want to give her an opportunity to talk today. So that was wonderful. So here we go. I'm going to give you all the rundown. You can reach us at The Blind Spot by Ray Morales at gmail.com. That would be my email address. You can find us on Spotify, on any of the major platforms, but basically Spotify is the one I like best. I'm on Apple also. Just give us a ring if you have questions, or you have a particular question you want me to answer on the air. Just go ahead and send it to my email, and I will do that on the next episode. If you have a guest that you think I should interview, why don't you just send that to me in the email, and I'll be glad to get them on. So again, I'm signing off for tonight, but it's been fun. I appreciate you guys listening. We are up to over 750 listeners now, so let's hit 1,000 before the year's out. Okay, thank you very much. See you next time. Bye now. Well, hello again, everyone. This is Ray Morales with The Blind Spot. And today my guest is retired Colonel Brian O'Connell. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Ray. Thank you. And I will make a quick correction, retired Lieutenant Colonel, but yes,
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's fine. Well, anyway, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Well, that's sort of like an interview where they say, "Tell us about yourself." The hardest question of an interview, isn't it? And we're always warned about that. Um, well, I'm a member of the Blinded Veterans Association, and that's how you and I met a couple of weeks back in St. Louis, the BVA,
Right.
And so I'm a veteran. Obviously, in order to be a member, I'm a veteran, Air Force veteran, and have been around the world a couple of times, I guess, in that capacity, which was a pretty cool part of my journey. Retired about 7. Let me do the math in public here, which is always embarrassing. 17 years ago from the Air Force, and since then held a variety of positions in the defense contracting world, working with the Air Force in a couple of different positions, and teaching Air Force Junior ROTC as well, which is what I am currently doing.
So how long have you been doing that? That really interests me.
I did it for a little bit over 8.5 years, between 2008 and 2016. And at that point, which kind of jumps forward to our one of our purposes for being here today, I think at that point, I started losing much of my eyesight due to glaucoma that had been progressing. Well, that had not been progressing too much to my knowledge at that point, but then began to progress more quickly. And in 2016, I stopped teaching because I thought that was about as far as I could go, given that my eyesight was decreasing. And I retired, fully retired for 6 years plus, and I'm back doing that again, back in the same school, in the same position, and teaching junior ROTC again. So it's been about 9 years total between the two stints of doing that and continuing.
Well, cool. For my listeners who may not know, what is the difference between ROTC and junior ROTC?
Sure. Well, ROTC is the college level Reserve Officer Training Corps that the services provide. So that's a college level program that leads to commissioning in one of the armed services. Junior ROTC is a high school course, high school program that, again, all the services offer this. Different schools pick up different service programs. In this case, in my school here in North Carolina, it's an Air Force junior ROTC program. So it's a high school program, doesn't lead directly to anything as far as the military is concerned. And we are not recruiters, which is one of the messages we try to get out constantly. We're not Air Force or Army or Navy or Marine or Space Force recruiters. We are high school instructors that work for both the high school principal and the Air Force program, which provides the curriculum and provides the support and funding for it. So it's a different program, but a high school-based program for junior ROTC and a college-based program for ROTC.
So what's the benefit for the student joining ROTC through you?
Well, I think there are quite a few potential benefits, and kids, high school kids, take different programs and join different clubs, if you will, and do different things in high school for various reasons. But what we try to offer, and I can speak to our experience here in a small town in northwestern North Carolina, what we try to offer is a couple of things. We try to offer some education, if you will, some an ability to provide a bigger view of the world in some ways. We do in our curriculum, we do have lessons on everything from patriotism to military history to public speaking and communication. So it's a wide range of curriculum and opportunities for kids to participate in, as well as other more educationally focused programs. For some of the things that I teach, for instance, are aviation history and aerodynamics, the science of flight, as well as astronomy and space exploration and global cultures, and so it's a wide ranging curriculum. So we do, that's what's published. Okay, these are the things that are published. But in addition to that, and I think most kids who've taken junior ROTC can attest to this, it's a place where kids can come and be a member of a group, a member of a club. And many of them take these courses because their friends have taken or are taking these courses, or their brothers and sisters or cousins, or even parents did this when they were in high school. And so there's a sense of being part of something in school that is pretty cool, like a club, but a little more in many ways.
Right. So what is the benefit to them if they decide to join Air Force, Army, whatever?
If they do decide, and really a small minority of our students do go into the military after high school, if they do decide, they do have an advantage. They were able to get extra rank, which equates to extra pay at the completion of basic training. So if they take a couple or 3 semesters of junior ROTC, they do get an extra stripe or 2, depending on the service, when they finish basic training. So there is an advantage if a student is interested in doing that. But again, there isn't a direct correlation between most students who take junior ROTC and go in the military. There is additionally, if a student is interested in taking ROTC in college, going to a 4-year school and taking ROTC in a particular service, they do have probably a little bit of an advantage if they compete for a ROTC scholarship. Of course, they have to have the grades and all the other attributes that make them competitive, but everything being equal, a student from junior ROTC who competes for an ROTC scholarship, which provides full tuition and fees at a 4-year university, student has an advantage from having taken junior ROTC as well.
Well, that's great. And so if you're in the college level, obviously when you graduate, you become an officer. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. Taking ROTC, graduating from the college, and completing the ROTC program, you're commissioned as a second lieutenant or an ensign, depending on the service.
Okay, that's great. So tell me a little bit more about North Carolina. How long have you lived there?
Well, North Carolina is is a state full of variety, that's for sure. As
It
many
is.
states.
I
Yeah,
know from my own experience. Yes.
yeah, it's a beautiful state. I can speak mostly to the western area of it, which is where I teach. I'm in a small town called Dobson, North Carolina, a population of about 1,200 people. The county seat of Surry County. It's in northwestern North Carolina. It borders on the Virginia border, and we're not in the mountains here, but we're in the foothills of the Blue Ridge.
Okay.
And west of us and south of us, most people have heard of Asheville and Boone, perhaps. Those are the towns in the mountains themselves, which are a little bit west, and in Asheville's case, a little bit south of us. So we're in that area of the state. Very pretty, very beautiful state. There's hiking and there are vineyards here, rural areas with lots of agriculture still. Used to be more tobacco than it is now. Now it's more soy and corn and chickens. A lot of chickens around these parts, and cattle to a fairly large extent as well. So that's the area of North Carolina I'm in. And when you go south and east, or more east toward Raleigh and the coast. I haven't spent a whole lot of time over there in the past few years, but the area I'm in is very pretty.
Yeah, I was stationed in North Carolina when I was in the Air Force. I was at Pope Air Force Base, if you're familiar with that.
Yep, sure am. Yep,
They used to call
Fayetteville.
they used to call it No Hope Pope.
Yeah. Well, I guess there was
Or
no
they
hope
would-
in the Air Force because now it's part of Fort Bragg. Well, it's not Fort Bragg
Right.
anymore, right? Fort Liberty.
Yeah,
Now it was swallowed up by the Army. It's all one Army post now.
right.
Mhm.
It's I hated to see it go, but I
Yeah.
guess that's progress,
Well, it's
So-
definitely changed. Yeah.
So let's move on a little bit more and let's talk about your career in the Air Force. What did you do?
I was a lucky guy. When I was in high school and college, there was no Air Force connection in my family. And some people say I've always wanted to fly airplanes, or I've always wanted to do X, Y, or Z. I didn't. I just wanted to do something that was interesting and different from everybody else. And in the early 70s, the military pretty much fit that bill because, we were coming out of Vietnam or finishing up and coming out of Vietnam at that point, and the military was not something that most people I knew were interested in becoming involved in. To me, it's and to me, it sounded interesting because it was different. Number one, and I read a lot as a kid. I read those adventure boys books that were about things that were sometimes military related, and to me that sounded interesting, and it sounded like adventure. So I didn't have an Air Force background, as I mentioned, or knew much about the Air Force, but I went to college, and of course there were things that happened in between all these decisions. I went to college at Norwich University and joined Air Force ROTC in part because of the recruiting pitch from the instructors. And Norwich is the nation's oldest private military college. And so as freshmen, it was an all-male school in those days, we were required to take either Army or Air Force ROTC. You had to take at least 2 years. And that was part of the deal at Norwich. And I figured I'd take Army ROTC because I didn't know anything about the Air Force and the Army. Okay, the Army. I figured the Army sounded more like something I could understand. And the recruiting pitch during our first couple of days of school, when we sat in the auditorium and it was registration day, and we had to listen to the ROTC department instructors make their pitch, and the Army guys, just to be blunt, they were not very interesting in their pitch. They kind of were dry and formal in their pitch about joining Army ROTC. And the Air Force's turn came up next, and I remember the narrator or the moderator up in front of the auditorium mentioning that the Air Force guy was supposed to be here, but he's not here, not sure where he is. And from the back of the auditorium, we all heard a voice, and the voice said, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And down the aisle walked this guy in a flight suit, wearing a flight helmet with an oxygen mask flung over his shoulder. And he walked to the front of the room, took off his flight helmet, put it on the podium, and said, "My name is Woody Thielen, and I fly jets. And if you think that sounds cool, then you should join Air Force ROTC." And I remember him, Major Woody Thielen was one of the instructors, obviously, and it just sounded so cool. Right then and there, I decided to sign up for Air Force ROTC, and hey,
Well,
the rest
sure.
is history. The rest is history. Yeah,
He brought props.
he did, and he had personality, which unfortunately the Army guys didn't seem to have a whole lot of that particular day.
No, they were all business, weren't they?
Yeah, they were all. Yep, they were just doing the job.
Well, I talked to you previously and mentioned that I went through ROTC, high school ROTC, and I enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoyed it, and especially my instructors, they were great. And if anybody's not familiar with it, there is always one enlisted and one officer at the school that's the commandant and his assistant, I guess they call him. But my favorite guy there was Colonel Vaughn. He was a character. He was old airborne. He'd been into World War II and Vietnam, and he was a tough cookie. And then Master Sergeant Stewart, he was, I'll never forget him. They were really good people, very good instructors, very personable and likable. I enjoyed it so much. So talking about that brings back good memories for me.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're able to bring. Not some are better instructors than others, of course, which is always the case. I think one of the advantages, and I think one of the advantages the program offers is until now, and there are some changes happening as we speak, but until now, all instructors for all the services that provide junior ROTC are retired military members, either officer, as you said, or NCO. And so we come in with at least 20 years of experience under our belt in the military. And that gives us a perspective, whether we realize it or not at that point. That's much different from a regular teacher who might come in his or her early 20s with only college and that behind them. And so we have a perspective, first of all, of having been places and done things. We're probably not as awed by having to deal with high school kids as some younger people might be. It's a different world in a high school, but having been places and done things that junior ROTC instructors have done, I think it's a good fit for the people who are interested in it. And so, yes, I think the kids who have good instructors, they benefit from that for sure.
So tell me, where do you go from there? Where did your career take you? You said all over the world. Let's start when you first came to when you retired.
Well, I was Vietnam was winding down. I graduated from Norwich in 1976, so we were still in that major drawdown from Vietnam, and I was one of the two guys in my ROTC program in Norwich who was lucky enough to get a flying slot. And again, I had no background flying airplanes, and I thought airplanes were cool, but that's about as much as I knew about airplanes. So I got a flying slot. Now my eyes, ironically enough, my eyes were not great even then. I was nearsighted, so I wore glasses. Not terribly nearsighted, but nearsighted. I wore glasses, so I didn't qualify for a pilot slot. In those days, you had to have 20/20 vision uncorrected to qualify for pilot training. But I did get a slot. And so off I went to NAV school, as we called it, at Mather Air Force Base in Sacramento, California.
Right.
And it was great. It was, man, Mather, Sacramento, great place.
Beautiful weather.
Beautiful weather near the Bay Area, San Francisco and Monterey and all those places. I'd never been out there. I never been on the West Coast. I'm originally from Philadelphia, the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. So it was a great experience. And NAV school to me was just great. You know, the whole program, meeting guys from all around the country. And again, when I say guys, back in those days, only guys flew airplanes. It was not yet open up to women in the cockpit. So it was all guys, and it was a great experience. I really enjoyed NAV school. Well, from there, I went into advanced training for electronic warfare officer training, which was also at Mather Air Force Base. And from there, went to B-52s and qualified in B-52 and was stationed. My first duty station was definitely not Sacramento. It was Loring Air Force Base in Maine, northern Maine.
Oh, wow.
Which was kind of cool too, because having been in school in college in Vermont, in northern Maine, although it's a ways away, it's still that same area of the country. So it wasn't as much of a change for me as it might have been for someone from the South or from the West.
Right.
So I started in B-52s and had a couple of tours in 3 tours in B-52s overall. And was an academic instructor back at Mather at one point, academic and simulator and flight instructor back at Mather several tours later. Went overseas, went to Panama, was stationed down in Panama during the late 80s, early 90s, when that was an interesting time down there in U.S. Southern Command. Flew during the first Gulf War. I was a B-52 guy, again, at Loring Air Force Base during the first Gulf War. Had a tour in Guam, beautiful Guam in the Western Pacific, flying B-52s out there as well. And yeah, it was just several other things, some staff positions, and I was a squadron commander at one point, again, back at Loring Air Force Base later in my career, and an air liaison officer with the Army's 10th Mountain Division as well. So it was a pretty varied career. I was really fortunate, and yeah, absolutely a great 26 years of total of 26 years of active duty.
Right. Wow. It sounds like an interesting and fun career. Did you ever get a chance to go out to South Dakota?
You know, no. I've been in most states, but not South Dakota, which is kind of who knows why. I don't know why.
Or how about Omaha? I know that was a big
Sure,
out
sure.
there.
I was never stationed in Omaha, but several TDYs, several visits out there for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time out there in my civilian career. I was a painter in my second life after Air Force, and I painted every stripe on that base, on the streets and on the runways, everywhere. So yeah, I enjoyed it out there.
Yeah,
it was a nice base and very, very good to work at. The area was really nice too. I liked Omaha a lot.
Yeah, it's a good baseball town. College World Series is there every year.
Oh yeah,
That's a big deal for sure.
That's for sure. And they got a brand new stadium out there now.
Yes, so I've heard. Have not seen the new. I saw the old one, but Rosenblatt Stadium. I remember that. Went there once, but that's long.
Funny story. We were out there, and my wife came to visit, and she said we'd heard a lot about the Mutual Omaha Zoo and all that, and so we went to see the zoo. And we're from St. Louis. We got a great zoo here. And we thought, well, this is going to be great. It's like one of the biggest in the world, they say. And we get out there, it's a little dinky zoo. I was not impressed at all.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, you came from St. Louis. That's
yeah. It's one of the biggest and most interesting zoos around, and it's free. One of the last free zoos.
Oh, okay.
I love the San Diego Zoo, but it costs an arm and a leg to get in that one.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm a zoo person. I just love going to the zoo. All right, so let's talk more about you instead of me. Everybody knows my story, so let's talk about how you started losing your vision.
Well, it was I didn't know I started losing my vision when it began. And I mentioned this in my talk when I was talking to the BVA a couple of weeks back. In the Air Force, as a flyer, you have annual physicals, annual medical exams. And That's the eye exam. And, they do that little air puff test on your eyes to check the pressure. And I was actually deployed. I was deployed a lot. And I was deployed during this particular exam. And I remember the tech said, when you go home, you might want to get those eyes checked because your pressure is kind of high. And I, you think, oh yeah, whatever, sure, okay. And when I went back home, when I was redeployed, and I did have my checkup, well, sure enough, my pressure was high, and I was diagnosed with glaucoma. I didn't notice any difference. I could not tell myself. And, started going on medicated eye drops, which the doctors told me, this is what you do. And I remember I do recall asking a lot of questions about what's this all about, what's it going to lead to. And the answer I heard more often than not was, well, there's no telling. Everybody's case of glaucoma seems to be a little bit different. We're not really sure why it happens or what the cause is. And there's no standard. There's no normal progression. Some people progress not much at all. Other people's condition progresses. So that's what I knew. And I took eye drops for several years. I was good at taking my eye drops. When doctors told me, don't be one of those people who don't take your eye drops, I took them at their word, and I was very good at following the routine and the prescriptions. And so I didn't notice much of a difference, although, probably I couldn't see quite as well in some ways, but didn't affect anything practically for me. And so I retired from the Air Force and was actually recalled back in the Air Force after 9/11 and spent another 4 years doing some electronic warfare stuff at Eglin Air Force Base. Went back in on a waiver because of my eye condition, but it didn't affect anything practically speaking again. Mm-hmm. So when I reverted to retirement in 2006 and eventually began teaching junior ROTC, again, no issues. I coached baseball. I taught in the classroom. Everything was fine until summer 2014. And it was one of those things that it just happened. And I noticed one of my eyes started to become a little more cloudy, and my vision a little more cloudy. And, you start blinking and doing all those things that just come natural, and it wasn't clearing up. Finally went to go see my ophthalmologist, and she told me that, high pressure spike, optic nerve was damaged more, emergency surgery, and I lost a significant amount of vision in that episode. Same exact thing happened about a year later to my right eye. This time I sensed what was happening because I experienced the same thing with my left a year prior, and I went right in, had emergency surgery again. But again, the spike of the pressure was quick, and it affected my optic nerve, and my vision decreased. My eyesight decreased significantly in both eyes as a result of those episodes. So that was 2014, 2015. And as I mentioned, by 2016, my eyesight had incrementally continued to get worse. And that's when I decided, or felt like I was forced to decide to stop teaching and figure out what my next step was going to be. So it was a long-term, but in the end, very quick transition from feeling pretty normally sighted to quickly realizing that, or quickly having to deal with not normal eyesight. And then since 2016, it's continued to incrementally decrease until at this point I'm legally blind, and just dealing with that on a regular daily basis.
Right. So tell me how you were feeling when you first were diagnosed with the glaucoma.
Well, I was first diagnosed, it was kind of like, okay, I'll deal with that. I didn't have, as I mentioned, didn't have any significant awareness of any change. So I didn't see it. I literally didn't see it. And
it never gets old. I love it.
Right. And so I didn't think much about it. And I really, other than doing my eye drops, other than following the regimen for eye drops faithfully, I didn't think of it. And it didn't affect me in any other way except having to do eye drops.
So at that time, you weren't really scared or worried?
No.
Losing your sight. It was
correct. I never expected it would. Didn't even think about it, to be honest. I knew I had that condition, and I knew I'd take eye drops, and sort of like, I'm trying to draw a parallel, if you have high blood pressure, perhaps, and you take high blood pressure meds and you're feeling fine, you might not think about it. And I have high blood pressure, so I take high blood pressure meds. So that's kind of what I'm saying. I don't think about it on a daily basis. I feel fine, and my blood pressure is fine as long as I stay on my meds, and I have. So that's kind of the way I thought about it, but probably not consciously. Just, that's just the way you go about your daily business and do your thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So as it progressed, then when did it start getting scary? Is basically what I want to know.
Right. Well, that was 2014. That's when that episode happened on my left eye.
Was
And
it just a certain day that said, "Wow, this
it
is
was,
serious"?
yes. And it wasn't like it happened and I was immediately aware. Actually, my wife and I were at the beach, and I noticed, looking out over the view, the ocean, the beach, and I noticed that one eye was just not, it just didn't seem right. And uh, I noticed it, but didn't think much about it. I thought, maybe there's some sand, or maybe there's salt spray, or who knows?
Right.
You just sort of don't think much. It just seems kind of, it'll be all right. And so that was the first episode. It didn't become all right. And then that second, and then, had to have emergency surgery when I got back home, which was, like a week or two later for the surgery. So that, yeah, that became apparent something was wrong, but my other eye was still okay.
Hmm.
So I thought, okay, one eye's not great. It's not awful at this point, not great. But the other eye's okay, and then the other eye, same thing happened about a year later, like I mentioned, and yeah, then it became real on a regular basis. And
Uh-huh.
that's when it became, all right, should I be driving anymore? Should I change, my life significant? Well, and then even those weren't necessarily conscious decisions. And I think a lot of us who have gone through this, we can kind of identify with that. It's when it's gradual and incremental, you kind of deal with it gradually and incrementally, and until it becomes very apparent. Like in my case, when I stopped driving, I almost hit a guy, and that was when it became very apparent to me that I will not drive anymore.
Right.
Hmm.
That's I've interviewed several people that's the case for them. They
Hmm.
that one close call that they had while driving really scared them. And
Yeah, and thank God, I didn't have an accident, didn't hurt anyone or
right,
myself. I did not, thank goodness, because it could have happened probably several times. I was lucky, and it did not. But that one time, and I've mentioned this to a whole lot of people. I was driving out of my neighborhood. We were living in Florida at the time. I was retired, and I was driving out of my neighborhood, and had just turned off my street, and so I was going very slow, maybe 10 miles an hour at the most. And there was a crew doing some tree trimming along the street, for wires or whatever the problem.
uh-huh,
They're doing some tree trimming, and there's a guy standing out there in the orange vest with that sign, that stop slow sign,
right.
and I didn't see him until I was right on him. And fortunately, I was going so slow that I stopped and did not touch him. And I don't know whether he ever realized how close he came to me running him over. But at that point, I went up to the next driveway, turned around, came back home, and I walked in the house and gave my keys to my wife, and I said, "That's it. I almost ran over a guy. I have no business being behind the wheel of a car."
Wow.
Hmm.
That's pretty scary. Especially, you look down or you just look away and you don't see anybody, and then you look back and there's a guy standing in front of you.
Well, and for me, I have very little central vision.
Uh-huh.
The way my glaucoma progressed, very little central vision. So I don't think I was looking away or down. I was looking straight ahead and still
Oh,
did not see him. You see, that was the scary thing, looking straight ahead, and then he just materialized, probably through my peripheral vision at the last
right,
second.
right.
And
Yeah.
so that really hit home with me. Like, okay, dude, it's time. And I had pushed it, as most of us probably do. I had pushed it, and having that ability to drive is something that, who wants to give that up, and
Well, I know I didn't.
yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah, that was probably the worst thing that ever happened is
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I had to give up my license.
Mm-hmm.
I my case was a little different. It wasn't gradual, it was all of a sudden. Mine was due to high blood pressure and kidney failure. and just came all of a sudden. Like I said, I had a stroke, just a triple whammy all at once.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had gone to a physical. I was having my annual physical, and I just had a one about 6 months earlier, and they said everything was fine. And then started having symptoms of just dizziness and walking on my toes. And my wife said, "You need to go to the doctor. I'll set you up an appointment." So I left from work that afternoon and went straight to the doctor. And he took my blood pressure and he said, "You need to go to the emergency room right now."
Mm.
So I went to the emergency room, and while I'm sitting there waiting to see a doctor, I had a stroke and I didn't know it.
Oh,
And so the doctor sees me and had another stroke while I was in his office, and it was crazy.
wow.
They
Yeah.
sedated me to get my blood pressure down, and then I had, I guess, another stroke that really did me in, and they took my eyesight. I
Mm.
woke up from the sedation, and I was totally blind. Then, as the weeks progressed, I eventually got a little bit of my sight back, but not all of it. So I was diagnosed legally blind at that time, and that was the last time I ever drove.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, there's so many, we all have our stories, right? And
Yeah,
everyone, and it's, I think it's tempting to try to think of visually impaired blind people as kind of all the same, you know, in a very general sense. You know, I think the general population, and maybe I was as guilty of this as anyone in the past. You know, someone's visually impaired or blind, and we just sort of have this image in our minds, perhaps, of something, you know, a guy with a cane or a person with a dog, and that's maybe as far as we ever thought about it.
exactly.
And yet, everyone is entirely different. The circumstances, the conditions, you know, the causes. You can say there's glaucoma, or there's, like in your situation, a stroke and high blood pressure, or a combat, you know, related wound, or you can look at different causes, but they're still all incredibly different.
Oh yeah,
And the way they manifest and the way we deal with those things are just as different.
yeah. There's so many. I've interviewed so many people, and everyone's story is different.
Yes.
That's what fascinates me about
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
The whole reason I started doing this podcast was to get awareness out there to people that, the only thing I knew about blind people was, like you said, they had a cane or a dog, or they wore dark glasses.
Uh,
I'd never even encountered a blind person my whole life before this happened to me.
yeah, and it's very rare. And I've, when I was going through the blind rehab center down in Biloxi a couple of years, actually 4 years ago now, 4 years ago, and this was instructive. I was walking in the neighborhood, was around doing mobility training with my
Hmm.
with the cane, and
Right.
you know, most of us, well, I'll say me, I can't speak for most of us. I kind of resisted the cane thing because I have enough peripheral vision. I can more or less see where I'm going, you know,
Oh, I'm right there with you. I hear
right?
you.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll step in a hole and I'll bop my head on a low hanging branch. Absolutely. But, you know, but, you know, and finally I get to the point of, okay, I understand the cane is very helpful, very useful. But we're going through mobility training, to back up to the story here. And we're in a neighborhood, and we're coming to a corner, we're coming to a T intersection, and we were going to cross the street. And my
Mm.
instructor's behind me. I have the cane, the instructor's behind me. And there was a car coming up from my left, and he or she was going to turn right as we were getting ready to cross. And so I waited, and the car waited, and we were both kind of waiting to see, am I going to step out? Is he going to turn? You know, that it's a very,
Right.
very quiet neighborhood, so it wasn't like it was a busy street. And I sort of turned my head over my shoulder and said to my instructor, I guess he's not used to seeing a person with a cane. And she said, he's probably never seen a person with a cane because most people who need a cane don't get out and walk. And I thought that was very interesting because
Hmm.
she's right. She,
Yep.
you don't see blind people, you don't see people with canes because they're not out for the most part.
Right. I
Yeah.
was not afraid to leave my house when it first happened to me, but I had not had any professional mobility training.
Mm-hmm.
I had a cane, but I never didn't know how to use it. I just tapped along like, you see in the movies.
Yeah.
And that I found out that was the wrong way to use it.
Yep.
But yeah, I had a rude awakening when I went to Hines, the blind rehab center that I went to.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned a lot, and it really changed my life.
Absolutely. That was, man, what a absolutely life-changing experience.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you go to Hines or Biloxi, pick one. There's 13 blind rehab centers out there.
Right.
And man, what a program. And so many people aren't aware of it. Like I wasn't aware of it.
I wasn't either. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was,
And
like I told my instructor there, this is the best kept secret in the whole VA.
yes. And a change. I mean, life changing is not too strong a phrase. I went in 2019, and I had, my eyesight had been really. I had lost a lot of my eyesight starting in 2015, as I mentioned. So it had been several years, and I didn't really think of it much at the time. But I look back on it, and I realized I stopped doing things that I normally would do because I felt uncomfortable not being able to, mostly with people, not being able to see the faces and being able to interact socially the way I used to and the way you normally are used to doing. And at the time we lived in Florida, and I really enjoyed sailing. I had a boat, a sailboat, and I enjoyed sailing and being out in the water, and I could still do that because I knew how to do it, and I didn't need as much eyesight to actually sail the boat. But being at the marina and interacting with other people, I stopped. I didn't get involved in anywhere near as many of those things as I know I would have. And it was truly because I would walk through that area and there'd be people talking, and I could not tell if they were waving hi or smiling or pointing or,
Right.
flipping me the bird or whatever. I mean, you don't know. And so you started avoiding social places because it was hard and it was uncomfortable.
Right.
Man, that's the thing you don't want to do, right? That's the thing you have
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
have to try to do even more purposefully because it's so easy to retreat. And I started retreating.
Yep.
Mhm.
As many of us do.
Yep.
And then that leads to isolation, that leads to
Mhm.
depression, and
Mhm.
if you don't stop it, it'll go downhill quick.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I see a lot of veterans that's what happens to them.
Mhm.
And hopefully through, like I said, this podcast, that I can make a difference and let them know they're not alone. There is hope. There is a future out there. You just have to, just because you're blind and you've lost your eyesight does not mean you've lost your vision. You got to have a vision for your future.
Yeah, that is so true. When I was thinking about some of the things we might talk about today, and when I gave my talk a couple of weeks back, I mentioned, some of my approaches to life, and I've always been a risk-taking kind of guy, not absolutely outlandish, but I've enjoyed adventure and sports and those kinds of things, and I still do. So I did talk about that to some extent, but I also
Sure.
trying to draw a parallel to, there are so few people in the population. There are a lot of us who are visually impaired or blind, but as far as a ratio, a percentage of the population, a very small percentage. And so when we think the greater population think of someone who has lost his or her eyesight, it's oh my, it's a terrible thing. I feel so sorry for that person. But everyone just getting older, man, that comes with its own challenges.
Right.
And how many times have we heard someone who's in their 40s say, "Well, I can't do that anymore." That being something like, "I can't run anymore. I can't, fill in the blanks. Do something physical
Right.
because I'm old. I'm 40 something years old. My knees are shot. My back is shot. Fill in the blanks." And you hear it all the time. And so people are modifying their lives without even realizing that they're surrendering. And it's everywhere. So we have something that's more obvious. We have something that's, visual impairment or blindness is very obvious. But everybody has something they're dealing with, almost everyone, right? And so
Right.
our journey is not that much different in many ways, in a general sense. I'm not going to be that guy who says I can't. there are things, as I mentioned, there are things I don't do anymore, but I don't want to say I can't, because that's just surrender. And the 42-year-old guy who says I can't run anymore, I'm like, come on, man. You have options, you have choices here. And I'm not talking injuries. I'm not talking, something that isn't controllable. I'm talking things that are controllable.
Right.
And that's just kind of, I think that's an approach that it doesn't make us seem so different. Sure, we have eyesight loss. Okay, we're dealing with that. Somebody else has other challenges. Deal with that and keep going. Just keep moving.
Well, I tell you, some of the guys that have been a big inspiration to me, I met through the BVA, and guys like Lonnie Bedwell. He's totally blind because someone shot him in the face with a shotgun. There's Steve Baskus. He was wounded in action. He's blind, totally blind. These guys, they're out climbing mountains. They're out shooting the rapids in a kayak. And it just amazes me the things that blind people can do if you just surrender to it and do it.
Yes, absolutely true. And they have been an inspiration to me as well. And I know them both, and I count them both as good friends.
Mm-hmm. Same.
And I mentioned in my talk again that when I was at the Blind Rehab Center, I received a call from Lonnie, who I had not met and did not know of prior to that.
Uh-huh.
Lonnie's the guy that got me going. First of all, I wasn't aware of the opportunities, the adaptive sports programs that are out, many, many, many of them that are out there. And he gave me information and encouraged me and invited me to participate. In my case, Steamboat Springs and then Crested Butte out in Colorado. What an incredible opportunity. And I jumped in. Wholeheartedly. And even though I was a little bit curious as to how things would go, being there with Lonnie and other people, you meet the other people who are
right.
also suffering visual impairment and working through that and moving forward as they're doing it. The reason to say I can't just goes away. But at the same time, that's me, and those are the people who do that. But there's so many people, as all of us have heard, they get the call, they get the invitation. Hey, come on out. We're doing these. There are these opportunities. You're invited. And so many people, so many veterans, so many visually impaired and blind veterans say, no thanks, no thanks, no thanks. And they don't. And it's too bad.
Right. It's I am one of those. I hate to admit it, but I'm the guy that likes to sit on the couch and watch TV. What I can see of the TV, mostly I just listen to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am that guy. But I'm starting to turn my life around.
Mm.
So slowly but surely, I'm getting out there and doing more and more. Because through this podcast and talking to veterans, I'm really in awe of these guys, and I want to be like them when I grow up. That's what I tell people.
I understand, and it's not so. I think there's a perception sometimes of, well, if I go to a skiing week, a veterans skiing week, I have to go skiing and race down the mountain, and I never skied in my life. Well, no, yeah, you can ski if you want, as much or as little as you want, with an instructor who's going to be very good. But you get that camaraderie. You get that social it's priceless. And even if you really aren't into skiing at all, or cold weather, or fill in the blanks, man, the rest of it, the 90% of it is being with these other people, these cool people who are doing things and being involved, and just they're great people. And that's what really counts.
Yeah, it is. Like you said, the camaraderie. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of being back in the service again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
There's nothing like it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And trying to explain it to someone who's never experienced it, it's just, you can't. You really can't.
Right. Right. And these are people, everyone I've met through these programs, I didn't know before. There isn't a single person I've been out to any of these programs with who I knew in the service or anywhere else. I've met all these guys and girls through these programs. And it's just a quick, easy, everybody gets along, everybody gets together and talks. It's immediate. It's immediate kinship right there, and
it's a brotherhood.
Absolutely.
And sisterhood. it really you have something you can bond over, and everybody's story is different, but
Mhm.
basically it's the same, and that's what brings us together, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said, I'm just going to throw this out there for what it's worth, Ray. You said you're that guy that sits on a couch. Well, hey, man, look at what you're doing as we speak. I didn't know. I don't have a podcast. Nobody has a podcast. So good for you, man. And that
Yeah,
counts.
there's not that many podcasts that deal with this subject at all.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because when I was, I mean, there's a lot of blind spots out there,
Hmm.
and that's why I had to put the blind spot by Ray Morales,
Oh,
because
I see. Yeah.
when I first I thought I was being clever by picking the blind spot,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I didn't know there were like 20 other ones out there.
Okay.
Everything from finance to gosh, what was another one that really surprised me? Oh, it was a sewing site.
Oh, really?
Yeah, what that has to do with the blind spot, I don't know, but
Maybe that's a sewing term. I wouldn't know.
it may be. I don't know. I don't sew, so.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's all kinds of them out there, and
Hmm.
I thought I was being really original and clever. At first, I wanted the name to be, what was it going to be? Another thing that had to do with blind. I can't remember it now. It's been so long, but I saw another one on there that was the same thing, so I had to change the name. The
Yeah.
Blind Eye. The Blind Eye is what I was calling
Okay. Okay. Uh-huh.
it. And but there was another one. It was a finance website, so
Right.
or a podcast. But anyhow, I digress. So let's get back to what we were talking about, the adaptive sports.
Hmm.
So how many different adaptive sports are you aware of?
Well, I'm aware. I know there are a lot of different sports.
Right.
There's kayaking and tandem riding, tandem bicycle riding. There's blind soccer. There's goalball. I mean, there are a number. Probably pretty much, the goal the Veterans Affairs has some really good programs, golf and the Golden Age games, among others that
Right.
we can participate in. That term, by the way, Golden Age games, I kind of think, I think you have to be 50 or 55 to participate. I'm not sure of the youngest age, but that just, I don't know. I don't know if, I don't know. That's just kind of a thing with me. Don't call me old. Just because I'm old, don't call me old. But I know there are a lot of adaptive sports. But the ones I participated in were the skiing, the downhill skiing at Steamboat and Crested Butte, and the hiking out there as well. Hiking and doing some camping as well at both places, Steamboat and Crested Butte. So summer opportunities and winter opportunities, and just really it's more of a matter of scheduling and timing that I've been there, as opposed to some of the other programs around the country.
Right.
Yeah.
I sorry, I got a text message come through, so
Oh, that happens.
sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyway, it just distracted me for a second. I was going to ask you a very, very intense question. Now I can't remember.
Of course you were. Yeah.
Uh,
Probably
any,
the most important question of the whole interview.
oh yeah, now it's
Yeah.
gone. It's out there in the universe,
go.
and I can't get it back.
Yep.
I tell you, this stroke really messed with my memory. It's hard for me to remember from 1 minute to the next. But then again, that's probably with the old age.
Perhaps,
You and I are about the same age.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. So I graduated high school in 75.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you said you graduated in 76?
High school in 72.
Oh, 72.
So
okay.
Got you by a few years, but not
Yeah,
too
you do.
many. Yeah.
So let's get back to adaptive sports again. I keep going back there.
Sure.
So how do you afford to do all these traveling to all these different places? I know that's my listeners want to know.
Yeah. Many of the programs take care of that. It's not an issue. For instance, Crested Butte, and I can't speak to every program Crested Butte has. I don't know, but every program, I'm just using Crested Butte as a good example because I'm familiar with that. The veterans programs that I participated in are all at no cost. So when I was able to participate, they took care of the airfare and the lodging and food. And I mean, the only money I would spend on that week would be if we're going to stop by next door and get a beer after a day of skiing, you know. And
Right.
so that's what a deal, you know.
Yeah.
That's amazing, and it is amazing. It's fantastic and I'm incredibly grateful for that kind of support, and of course they get sponsors, and they fundraise for that, and it's great. You know, it's a wonderful opportunity. Others like Steamboat, we do pay the airfare. Participants are required to get there, but once you're there, everything is taken care of again. So airfare, depending on where you're coming from, you know, it can be whatever it is, a couple $100 or
Right.
but really, other than that, if you're going to pay for a week on the mountain, I don't know, for people who don't ski, I don't know if they have any idea how much it costs to go skiing these days if you're just a regular Joe showing up. You're going to rent gear, or you have bought your own gear, and you're going to buy a lift ticket. It's a lot. You know, you're talking a couple of grand for
Oh, wow.
a week on a mountain. Easy. Well, not for us. You know, it's taken care of. And like I said, in Steamboat, we have to get there and back, but once we're there, it's all taken care of. And I can't speak again for other programs, but I'm sure they have similar type arrangements.
Well, that's what I've heard for different
Yeah.
types of programs. Most of it's covered by donations, and
hmm
so it's no cost to the veteran at all.
No, or little cost. And I think that
Yeah, very
if
little.
that's an impediment, if someone's thinking, well, I can't afford to go do that, well, you haven't asked the right questions maybe, because you might find that it's incredibly affordable and maybe even free. So yeah, and again, those people who sponsor that, and the people who donate, gee, you know, I'm incredibly grateful,
Right.
because that provides not just for me. I'll take advantage of it, and I'll be very grateful. But look at the opportunities that these people who are donating provide to all these veterans who are able to participate.
Exactly. And it's amazing that there's such a variety of programs out there.
hmm
So whatever you're into, whatever you might want to try and do, they'll have something for you.
Absolutely. I mean, there's hunting and fishing and,
Exactly.
and sailing. And I mean, yeah, you name it. Like you said, whatever you're into, it's probably there. There's an adaptive program for that, and maybe more than one.
I never knew they had such things, again, because I was never around blind people.
hmm Exactly. Again, you know, making those contacts, meeting people who, hey, I know a guy who knows a guy, you know, and then you start talking,
Right.
meeting people,
Exactly. That's how it happens.
and exactly how it happens. And yeah, last year at the BVA convention in Washington, D.C., one of the VA representatives, and I can't remember the man's name, but he gave a very good briefing on the VA adaptive sports programs, the ones that the VA presents themselves
Uh-huh.
and hosts and sponsors. And it was a very good program. And I wasn't very familiar with what the VA did, although I was very familiar with other adaptive sports programs. And I said to him after the briefing, I said, why am I not familiar with this? I'm tuned in to adaptive sports, you know, and I do these things, and I've been to the BRC, and I've never heard of these things and I was aware of the Golden Age game and some of the other things, but some of the other events, and I can't even tell you offhand what they all were, but there's a whole group of them.
Uh-huh.
So I said, why am I not aware of these? I said, I'm your target population. You know, I'm one of them. And why am I not aware? And he said, well, it's on the website. I said, well, if I don't know about your website, I'm not going to know about it. And why am I not aware of your website? And I wasn't being unkind to him. I was saying this in a positive way. And he said, yeah, maybe we just need to publish the website. And I said, that'd be a great idea. And ever since then, actually, I get on Facebook. I didn't sign up for it, but I get notifications, or on my Facebook feed, I see the VA Adaptive Sports Program stuff come down on there.
Huh.
And maybe they're making more of a push to do that. However, those algorithms work, but I didn't see those before. So kudos to them if that's based on their purpose and they're doing that. But yeah, again, it's a matter of knowing somebody who knows something and finding out about it and going from there.
Right. It's all in who you know, I guess.
Yep. Yeah. Large part. And
that's been the story of my life. It's who you know
yeah.
that gets you something. Well, I tell you, it's been about an hour, and I think we should wrap it up. People are not going to be wanting to hear any more of this, I'm sure. Their attention spans usually don't last this long.
Yeah, mine doesn't either.
But I tell you, I really appreciate you, Brian. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Hope you had fun like I did.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Ray. It's been a treat, and yeah, I'm glad to have met you out at St. Louis, and I'm sure we'll be talking again.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we will. I don't see this that you're going to be on my list of people to call once a quarter, and just to keep in touch, see how you're doing.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, you tell family I said hello, and God bless everyone there, and we will talk to you soon.
Okay,
Just hang on, don't hang up.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and sign off, do some housekeeping chores here, and then I'll get back to you. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So I tell you, folks, this has been a great interview with my buddy Brian O'Connell, and he's just been great. So if this is your first time listening, I really want to earn your subscription. So please like and share and leave comments. That really helps me out. So I appreciate you listening, and we are a weekly podcast. We're here every week. So you just set the time that you want to listen to it, and be back at the same time every week. So you can also listen to all of our old episodes. We're on Spotify. We're also on, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and many others. So just go ahead and use your regular podcast platform, and you can find us there. Just type in The Blind Spot by Ray Morales, and I'll pop up. So please come back and see us. And Brian, anything else you want to say?
No, I really enjoyed it, Ray, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, we're going to sign off, folks. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah, no, and that was with me. I had one instructor that was blind. Unfortunately, he ended up passing due to a very rapidly spreading cancer that's related to his military service in the Gulf War.
Oh.
But yeah, he was a fantastic instructor that really just took me underneath his wing. And I was like, hey, I was in your spot, 15, 20 years ago. And yeah, really was a good mentor. So yeah, he was, it was a shame. It was a shame when, with how quickly he went and everything.
Right. Well, how did you get involved with the BVA?
So that's a fun situation. I received a call out of the blue from the BVA because they heard about my story. I don't know how, because I never really spent time at Walter Reed, and I had no interactions or engagements with some of the things that the BVA was doing in the 2000s. And so it was 2010 when they gave me a call and it said, hey, why don't you come over to our national convention in Vegas? At which point I just had my newborn daughter, my wife, had my major decisions to make related to the military. And so it was one of those good timings for it to occur. And it's also one of the reasons why I've given so much of the last 12 years to the BVA, because of that initial talk, because of hearing about them, learning about them. My main point of contact that called me up was Tom Zampiri, who used to be the director of government relations before he became became part of the board of directors and our former national president. And many other opportunities him and I have worked on over the years. But it's really just one of those complete calls out of the blue that it really did change my life for the better, because blind rehab got me going in that direction, and then getting over to the BVA convention to learn about others who are blind is how I met Paul Mims. And ever since then, Paul Mims has been really good friends. It's the positive, they provide that positive force for me to really see it and really start changing. And then very, very quickly, I myself went through the BVA change where start off by being in charge of my regional group in Kansas until Paul and I merged and started to create the Heartland Regional Group that covers, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and Nebraska. And eventually I became part of the board of directors before I started to work for the VA, and eventually went from the VA to working for the BVA, because it's just one where it's like, I want to keep trying to give to blinded veterans, and the BVA is one of the best ways to give to the blind veterans, making sure that they have a future for themselves, just like they created my future. I spend each day with the BVA trying to create those opportunities and those futures for other people so that they can engage with the BVA and have a place to call their own and have a network of peers that they could learn from, as well as experiences that allows them to advance what it is that they're trying to do, and as they regain their identities and forge new pathways in life. So,
Cool. Well,
yourself?
I've only been a member of the BVA since I think April,
Gotcha.
and I really enjoy it. I wanted to get involved with them, and again, I wanted to give back because I got so much from the VA. I wanted to give back to the veterans that are out there that don't know about the BVA. And if you're listening and you hear us keep saying BVA, it stands for Blinded Veterans Association. And so I'm a lifetime member, and I encourage everyone out there who is legally blind or blind to join.
Yeah, or low vision. We basically, our eligibility criteria is any veteran that receives services from blind rehab is able to become a member. And we have one of those historic legacies where we've been around since 1945. We helped stand up and advocated for the development of the Hines Blind Rehab Center that finally got its feet up and going in 1948. We became chartered by Congress to be the veteran service organization to represent severely visually impaired veterans, and that's what our charter from Congress has tasked us to work with. And over the years, we've done many things with ensuring that veterans, regardless of how you lost your sight, is able to receive all of the services from the VA Blind Rehab Services and the VA in general. We were a major piece in how we have VIS coordinators, our visual impairment services team coordinators, in the first place, that developed in the 60s and 70s and finally took off in the 80s. We played significant roles in advocating and getting the establishment of the 13 blind rehab centers, because before it just went from Hines, and then there was just a couple for the longest period of time. And then over the last 20 years, we tried to expand that. So we got 13 now in all the Visor and Victor programs. And then just all the other things. So within the VA, there's a priority group called Catastrophically Disabled. It's priority group 4. And this is a priority group for veterans where you don't have any copays or anything like that that you have to worry about. If you're legally blind, it's the qualification factor. So we played a major piece in getting that to be adopted by the VA.
Well, I thank you for that.
No problem. I will say, that's a good case in point. That caused it, and I've worked with many veterans that they do not qualify, or they're eligible for the VA, but since they lack a service connection, they don't qualify, and because they're legally blind, we're able to get them to then qualify and become eligible for all VA services or VA healthcare services. And you know, there's a lot of other things. So transportation is one of our main things, making sure veterans can access their appointments or receive travel reimbursements, housing grants. More recently, we're doing a lot of work with the VA to ensure accessibility of its websites and mobile apps. So if you haven't checked out va.gov, it's come a long way over the last 10 years since I've been using that website. Definitely more so over the last like 3 years. It's made a huge change in how accessible it is for us that use screen readers, screen magnifiers. And same thing with the new app, the VA Health and Benefits app. I work with the parts of the development team to make sure that we can use it. And talk about having all of our VA information and services at our fingertips. That's a fantastic app to use. So, and a whole lot more. We're working on many other things. So it's a lot more things coming down the pipeline. So, Ray, when you said you joined in April, you came in at a very good time.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that we have that's going to be coming up here in the near future that's really changing this organization from when I joined, as far as what's available and opportunities for members and people interested in the program to where we're driving it. And we're going to see some major changes and some major awesome opportunities over the next couple of months. That quick is what we're looking at for getting some of the new programs up and going that we'll be announcing during our national convention in August.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing all the new things that are coming out.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And also to see the new equipment that's coming out.
Yeah, we have some cool folks. So within the BPA, I've hosted our VetTech series. That is our Wednesday presentations with our assistive technology folks. And so I'll just say that starting in later part of July, beginning of August, we'll start doing some specific interviews for some of the folks coming to our convention. But call out just a couple of the folks that we're going to be having on. We'll have WorkCam there as one of our premier sponsors, and they're doing a lot of good work, and they're going to have some really cool announcements for us when we get there with their fantastic MyEye Pro and the Read. Vispiro's been a long partner with us, and they really do a fantastic job for Windows users to get them to be able to access their computers with JAWS and Fusion, along with all the other products that they have under their umbrella. We'll have we just did our last VetTech session last week with Digital FOV, and they're an adaptive scope for those that like to go hunting. So whether you're low vision or you're totally blind, they have some cool options so you can get back out hunting if you so want to, and they'll be there. Waymo is a really cool company. They're a spinoff from Alphabet, but they do a self-driving ride share service. So
cool.
If you're in a couple of areas that has their service, you could call a self-driving vehicle to pick you up and take you to where you need to go. And that's a really cool platform.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I saw one of those on YouTube.
Nah, it's really cool. I mean, you never know that the car that shows up is a Jaguar, but it's not like the Jaguar that we're thinking about classics. They're Jaguar special autonomous vehicles, which are fantastic vehicles.
Fantastic. That's cool.
Um,
So I used to sell Jags back in the day.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Do you still have any?
No, I never owned one myself.
Man.
I couldn't afford them. I was just a salesman. I couldn't afford that.
Sometimes you come across the person that's trying to sell off the used one or trying to.
I came across plenty of those, but I couldn't afford them.
Man.
You would think they'd pay their salespeople more, but they don't.
Nah. Nope.
I could barely afford to keep myself in suits, because you had to look the part.
Yep. And you had to talk their language, and it's like,
yeah exactly.
I get it for it. No, I hear you, man. It's, yeah. I hear you, man.
Um, but have you seen the new Apple? What is it called now? It just came out this month. Oh, goodness.
We're
It's
going to talk
what?
the Vision Pro.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about amazing. And this is why I do what I do is I love technology. It's why I have a technology webinar series. Yeah, so the Apple Vision Pro coming out in 2024. Retail value is going to be around $3,400 when it's released. Talk about a nice, awesome array of cameras, both facing your face as well as facing external, with a huge number of limitless capabilities. Awesome device that I can't wait for it to come out, because, I mean, the potential that it has for us as blind individuals. I know a lot of people have been hung up on the eye tracking piece, and those of us that don't have eyes, or those of us that don't have usable eyes or can move our eyes. It's like, don't worry, Apple will figure out a solution for that, where you don't have to worry about it. But talk about an awesome situation of, you're talking about spatial computing. And I'm thinking of Steve Jobs back in the late 2000, early 2010s. He did a keynote, and he's using a spatial computer. And this is like, very, very early, where he's wearing gloves and the goggles and everything.
Right.
And it
right.
kind of showed what he's doing and how he's interacting in a 3D spatial computing environment. And that's his hard drive. And it's like, we're finally there, finally at the level of being able to use spatial computing. And it's going to be really cute. And we think about in terms of blindness, and it's like, I think that's going to be cool. And there's going to be a lot of cool features we're going to be able to do, because, we're physically, even though we visually cannot see that virtual physical space, it's like what they're going to do to enable us to interact with it is going to be really phenomenal. I don't know personally what that's going to be like, but just assumptions I can make on some of the stuff that I'm seeing coming out, it's like, that's going to be really cool. Low vision, having such high definition cameras and having really high definition screens that you're going to be able to use, you're going to be able to see so much more and have such a better usage of your residual vision. It's going to be really cool.
Oh yeah, it's going to be 100 times more pixels, they said, than a 180 or 1080 TV.
Yeah,
it's going to be amazing. Just from the demos that I've seen, it is so futuristic. You just use your arms and wave them out in front of you, and you can move your mouse around on the screen.
Yeah.
And oh man, I can't wait.
I can't either. I can't either. I mean, yeah, I'm just going to wait for more of the accessibility things to come on to prove some of my assumptions correct. But I guarantee that we are going to have, for those of us that requires audio information to navigate, I guarantee we are going to have some really stellar audio signals that allows us to navigate those environments as well as we possibly can through spatial audio. Because right now, spatial audio is really cool if you just use it on your phone and you're using the if you're using AirPods,
right?
Whether you're using the Pros or not, and you do the spatial audio where you're taking the camera and showing your ear and everything to get that perfect acoustic sound. I think just from what we're getting with spatial audio right now, I think what Apple's going to do is going to absolutely blow us away. I can't wait to start playing video games again, because I've been waiting for this type of environment to start getting really re-engaged with video games, because you can do it right now. Don't get me wrong. You can play the Xbox or PlayStation, but I think what you're going to get from the Vision Pro is going to blow that away, because of how Apple is going to design the interface, the spatial audio, and everything else that goes along with that. It's just going to make the Oculus Rift seem like the old school 1980s virtual reality headsets in like 2 minutes.
Right. I'm just worried about it's going to be too realistic, and for all these vets that have PTSD, it's going to bring back a lot of sad memories for them.
So that's where you just have to watch the content, because that was one of the pieces that they mentioned about the movies and being able to stream shows and how realistic and how much definition you're getting. So it's like you might not want to use this for certain situations. I personally stay away from action and those types of
Right. You don't want Call of Duty on there.
No, you don't. But there's so many other ways of being able to do
Mario
it.
Kart would be fun.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love to do that with my daughters and throw I play it with them right now on the Nintendo Wii. But be able to throw shells at them. That's going to be fun. But
yeah.
But anyway,
I'm looking forward to actually trying one in person. Mm-hmm. And I hope maybe they'll have one at the convention that everybody can try out.
No. Apple is going to keep that one under lock and key until that thing gets released. You're not going to see that till the Consumer Electronics Show.
Oh, okay. Well, they said it was out in June, so
they announced it. They announced the Vision Pro this month, but
that was just an announcement. Okay.
Yeah, it was an announcement. There was at WWDC, that's the Worldwide Developers Conference. They had some there, but no one was actually allowed to interact with them like they do with other products. So it's still under tight wraps. And keep in mind, Apple, when they release their products, they usually are not the first ones to the punch. What they do is they wait and see what others are doing before they release the product. That's why you got the Oculus Rift before the Vision Pro. Uh-huh. That's why you're going to have the Google Glass out before Apple releases this other tier of the Vision, which is going to be a lower tier, a little bit cheaper in 2025 or 2026 is what estimates are. That's going to be coming most likely, but they're not trying to be the first ones to reveal. They want to be the ones that do it right the first time. And
right.
I'll look at the Google Glass as a good example. Came out mid 2010s. A lot of tech companies picked up on them. Warehouses used them. On the blind side of things, we've had several devices like the Ira, Envision AI, and CyberEyes all immediately grabbed onto the Google Glass. And we're not talking about cheap devices. We're talking about devices that cost a couple $1,000s.
Right.
The bad part is Google Glass announced at the start of this year, after not supporting it for the last 4 years, they're going to absolutely end the entire service line. So actually it occurred during the CSUN, which is a assistive technology show for individuals with disabilities that's done in California in February timeframe. And you had Envision AI there presenting, talking about it. And then as they're talking, Google drops the announcements that they're no longer going to have people support the Google Glass. And it's like, well, that was our product. Yeah.
It kind of sucks when they do that.
It does. But that's where it's like, I've been waiting for Apple to release theirs, because Apple is not going to release a device that's a one and done. They're going to do something that they're going to keep. I mean, how long has the iPhone and the iPad been around? Apple Watch is going on 8 years of annual updates.
This is the one I have is a 7th gen.
Yeah.
No, it's an 8th gen. I'm sorry.
It's when they come out with something, and they make sure that it's going to stick around. So,
and they keep improving it. That's the good thing about it.
They do.
So I can't wait to see what maybe in 10 years what that those goggles are going to look like.
Smaller, and they'll be there'll be cerebral chips if I had to go and say they'll be implanted in your brain at that point. So
Wow,
it,
that would be so cool.
I mean, that research is already going. There's a research project up in Chicago right now with the Lighthouse, and I forgot the university that's looking at a cortical implant that's looking for research participants. Key caveat is you need to be completely healthy, and you need to have had vision up into your adult life. So there are some caveats with that one. But yeah, they're trying to do that implant. There's a group out of Australia that's having some really good success and showing some positive strides with their cortical implant. So it's stuff that's not science fiction anymore. It's at the phase of early implementation and improvement. So we're going to see some really cool gains, I think, over the next 10 years as we understand more about how to do these types of brain implants.
Well, I may not be able to benefit from it in my lifetime, but hopefully down the road, others will.
Yeah, I agree with that. Where it's like, as much as I love to sign on to any of it, it's like, it's not going to get to that usable phase, in my opinion, till the next generation. But I mean, just watching it now, though.
Oh yeah,
that's the cool part.
This is that Buck Rogers stuff, you know.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, listening to all those futuristic things, now most of everything there has come to fruition.
Yeah.
Like cell phones. Nobody even thought we'd have cell phones.
Nope. I mean, teleporters might be it's one of those science fiction things that maybe
that
never
might be a
comes to
stretch.
fruition.
Yeah.
But same thing with faster than light. But hey, all the other things of daily life type stuff, it's happening. And just technology, watching it change, it's phenomenal. And as I said, who knows? The future is limitless with it. And AI. I've talked about this on my Vet Tech Talk on Thursdays a lot lately, is the role that AI is playing in our lives and how can we harness it, whether it's one of the language models like ChatGPT or Google Bard, or whether it's recognition, seeing AI or OrCam. Those are both AIs. There's AIs that we're using without knowing it, related to, anytime you do any financial transaction, I guarantee there's some AI. You apply for insurance, there's AI involved. We're just seeing AI just come all over, and it's not a scary subject to talk about. It's more scary on just how people might use it. But overall, in general, I mean, it's going to transform the world. It already has. And it's one that us as blind people, it's like, how can we harness it to the best of our abilities? What can we harness within the AI spectrum? So it's
well, and it's like anything else. It can be used for good or it can be used for bad.
Yeah.
So I just hope people use it for the good.
Yeah, that's all we can do. And
we don't need a Skynet, to give you a Terminator reference, No,
we don't need a Skynet. At least how it ended up. I'll take the early phases of the Skynet. Same thing with like the Matrix. I'll take the early form of the Matrix. Yeah. It's just that when you got that crossover, that's a point that we don't want. We can stick with the computer from the Enterprise. I mean, yeah, we can stick with that level of stuff. That's perfectly fine. So, but no, it's good. And but yeah.
Or 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Nothing wrong with Hal. Hal's a good guy. He's just misunderstood.
That's true. Yeah, he just had a rough childhood.
He did. Oh man.
So, all right, let's switch gears. Let's talk about adaptive sports.
Yeah. Yep. Another area where we get some cool technology involved. But anyways, yeah. You have any sports that you enjoy or that you wish you can go back to enjoying?
Yeah, I wish I could go back to fishing, golfing, and hunting.
Okay. Well, let me tell you. Well, I did bring up one solution for you, digital FOV. That'll get you back out hunting. Because what they do is they have a camera that mounts onto a scope that then gives you a better field of view of that scope. Or for folks that can't see at all, you just go ahead and get yourself a spotter that's looking at the screen, and that screen can be seen up to the screen is remote up to about 12 feet away or so. But no, that brings back hunting. I've shot many of turkeys since I've gone blind with using these types of systems. So we get you back out hunting, no problem.
Cool.
Fishing, there's nothing stopping you with fishing. It's just mainly getting out to the fishing hole. That's the hard
Well,
part.
and tying the knots. That's the problem I would have.
There's some good solutions that I've seen with using needle threaders and or just tying basic knots. That's always what I've done
Right.
with fishing. Is I've just stuck it, square knots, keep it simple because I'm not trying to bring in anything big. It's usually just bass and crappie and catfish.
Yeah.
But with where you're at, do you got a Project Healing Waters at all?
Not that I'm aware of. There
Check.
may be.
Check it out because they do fly fishing and they do excursions where they help you get set up with learning how to use a fly rod and tying flies and getting things all set up. And even if you're like me and you can't feel your fingers or anything, that and you got limited dexterity with your fingers, that they have some pretty good options and solutions to help you on out.
Well, I've never been fly fishing. That might be something I'd like to try.
Yeah, you'll have to check them out. Camp Hope is a organization on the eastern side of Missouri, and on the western side of Missouri, we have Camo Adventures, which is how I get vets out fishing here in Missouri, with some good opportunities. So
Cool.
It's all possible. And as far as golf goes, let me tell you, your shot never looked better since going blind. The only thing I'll say is make sure before you show up to the golf course, stop over by Costco or Sam's Club and grab the big, huge box of 1,000 balls and just hit the ball and say, "Yeah, I went about this far."
Yeah, there you go. Just leave it and move on and hit another ball. That's too funny. So, okay, tell us about cycling, because I know you're big into cycling.
Yeah, so cycling for the blind, it's done primarily with a tandem, though we do have a couple of really awesome folks that ride single bikes. Either they have low vision, or in the case of individuals like Sean Cheshire, she is totally blind and she rides with a guy that's in front of her using audio cues. So but generally, most of us, we ride tandem, so two people on a bike. Many options of doing it. If you got some mobility or balance issues, there's trikes, there's quads, there's side-by-side tandems. So, I mean, you name it, there's a way of getting butts on bikes, which is personally one thing I love to do.
That should be the name of a podcast.
Butts on bikes.
Butts on bikes.
Now you gave me an idea. Yeah, there's the name. There's the name of the podcast. So I've been trying to figure out a good podcast for cycling, but anyways, there's a lot of fun things you can do, and it's like, why do I pick cycling over some of the other things like running or walking or some of the other high adventure type stuff? Is, well, I don't have to worry about wrecking my body on a bike unless you crash.
Right.
You're not worried about knee injuries or backs. My back's already messed up enough. My knees like it when I don't go and run marathons anymore. But it's good. It's good fitness. It's a good workout. It can be done just about anywhere. I mean, you go, if you're traveling hotels, there's bikes there. Personally, my office is in my basement, so I have a trainer set up that's a road bike that's on a Wahoo Kicker setup that I got from Challenge Athletes Foundation. And it's a fantastic setup that allows me to hop on a bike and pretend like I'm riding on the real roads with the apps that I use for training. But when I'm not riding in the virtual or in my basement, I'm actually out on one of my tandems. My preference is road cycling or actually my preference is off-road gravel riding. Perks of being out here in Kansas and the Midwest is we got a lot of gravel roads, and there's no cars on gravel roads, so you're not worried about trying to be hit by townies.
Yeah.
And it's just a wonderful experience of being able to get out in nature. Here in Kansas, I ride out in the Flint Hills and other areas where it's just these sweeping, beautiful, majestic landscapes, tall grass prairies. I will say for all of my folks that are cyclists that live out in the coastal areas that always say about these epic climbs that you do, and I talked to them about bringing them down here to Kansas. They're like, "Oh, that's all flat, no problem." And what they don't realize about being out here in Kansas is, yeah, we're flat if you count about 1,100 foot climbs as flat. So we do more climbing out on these roads than I've ever done when I lived down in San Francisco and riding up in the mountains. So it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful chance of getting out into nature. And the part I love the most about cycling, well, it's just about being blind in general when it comes down to sports, is you're no longer doing a sport as an eye. Everything that you're doing as a blind person in adaptive sport and recreation is as a team, which makes it fun. Because you're bringing others on board. You're no longer just being the lone wolf.
Right.
It's all about community, which is why it's like, you meet really cool people on bikes. You meet really cool people anytime you bring people together. So, like we're talking about with you with golf and hunting and fishing, where it's like you could do some of that on your own. Don't get me wrong, but it's you get with an organization, you get with your community to go out for a hunt. That's fun. I mean, then getting the deer or getting the turkey, it's like, yeah, that was cool, but I really enjoyed being around others.
Exactly. The camaraderie, the friendships, and just the good times, it's you can't beat it.
No, you can't. You can't, because ultimately that's the best part of rehab. It's learning not just how to ask for assistance, but acknowledging that being with others, building a community around what you're doing, not only makes it possible for you to do it, but it makes it more enjoyable for you to do it. It brings the fun back to it. So,
right.
Well,
listen, Tim, we've been at it for about an hour now. Can you imagine that?
I keep going if you want me to.
Oh, I would love to keep going, but I don't think my listeners would stand for more than an hour. I think this is going to be one of our longest programs ever. I've been having a great time, though.
I have too, Ray.
We can always do a part 3 and a part 4. I'm down for that.
Well, and I'll say if anyone has any particular topics, it's like.
Yeah, I'm always begging my listeners if they have questions that they want us to answer, or if they have topics they'd want to hear us discuss, or if they want to discuss something, just email me here at theblindspot298@gmail.com, and we would love to have your questions. Whatever you want to say to us, we'll do it, and we'll try to make it come true.
Yeah.
Tim, you'd be available for that, right?
Yeah, I'll be on, but what social media are you on for the Blind Spot?
We are on Facebook, Twitter, and what else am I on? I think that's about it right now.
Awesome.
So they can reach me there. It's The Blind Spot by Ray Morales on any of those.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Ray. And anyone that wants to continue having the discussions about technology, join me on the BVA's Vet Tech. It's every Wednesday and Thursday, and all you need to do is go to bva.org, and you'll see our announcements for those. They're open to everyone. You don't have to be a veteran. You don't have to be blind to join us on those conversations. So there's my little plug for that, because I'll talk about technology all day. So
Yeah, I was going to let you have a chance to plug it, but you beat me to the punch.
no problem, man.
Is there anything else you want to plug?
Nope. That's the main thing. Maybe some plugs in my hair, so I could, have hair. I'll take some hair plugs.
Oh, you're too much, man.
Nah.
All right, Tim. I appreciate you.
No problem, man.
All right. I will talk to you soon, buddy.
Cheers.
All right. You take care. All right, folks. This has been Ray Morales for The Blind Spot. Please come back and see us next week. Bye now.